All right. So the world's this is the image, guys. This is an image of the world's tallest buildings. The tallest one, and I'm sure you guys, some of you may know, is Burj Dubai, right? It's huge. It's over 2,500 feet tall. Morocco Royal Tower is huge also. I mean, they're huge. Look how big it is compared to the Freedom Tower, which is also huge. Taipei 101 has a 101 towers, and it's not in the picture here, but in the top 10 claim to fame, the biggest towers in the world is also included Lotte Tower in Korea. So Korea has finally made a tower that reaches the top 10. I mean, it's about time, I guess, right? Korean, our society or cities have become big enough, right? And they say that there's new projects now underway, which including Jeddah Tower in Saudi Arabia, which aims for a height of 1,000 meters. Completed as planned, it would immediately claim the #1 spot. 1,000 meters. 1,000 meters. That's a kilometer high building. That's crazy. Um, you guys understand, well, like, right, why these images are mentioned. These are what I would call as modern day versions of the Tower of Babel, because technically the reasons people build these things is the same reason pretty much that people built the Tower of Babel. Why do we build these huge things, right? I mean, think about it. They're not necessary, right? I mean, it's not like we have run out of space on the ground that we need to build these high things that we don't, we have run out of, that we need real estate. We're not at that point where we have to like live in the skies, we're not there yet. But we build these huge towers, right? Huge buildings simply to make them big. That's the whole reason, to make them big and to make them bigger, right? They want to be, I want to be we want to have the biggest building, we want to have the biggest tower because it represents their achievement. It represents the achievements of the country, the technology, and all that. In other words, it's a representation of human achievement, right? And so Babel, let's look at Babel. We know this story so well that I'm not going to go into too much in detail. But and so we're going to look at more at the reality of the situation. I want to look at the reality or the stuff maybe we have missed. Babel, remember in the story of the Genesis story that we read, we know that Babel comes from the word Babel, right? Whatever. Babel is a word that means to confuse or to mix up. Okay, I'll talk about this in a little bit more, but Babel is to confuse and to mix up. And the word Babel, the city of Babel, or the location or the Tower of Babel, is connected with this word confuse, right? And that's um, the the name Babel that we Christians associated with, right? We just think that Babel is named Babel because it's connected to this word confusion. So that's why in English we use Babel to mean confusing or idiotic, right? Stop babbling. Stop babbling. That word comes from the word Babel, right? Babbling. Stop babbling like an idiot, like, right? So confusion. But the thing is, if you look at once you study a little bit about the history or the situation behind it, we notice or we recognize that Babel is actually a location as well. Okay, if you look it up, Babel is a proper name, not just a name that was given to the place afterwards. After all this happened, we called it Babel because it was a place that we got confused. No, it was actually the proper name. In other words, it was a location. Babel, okay, is Babylon. Babel is the forefront name of Babylon. You notice how similar it is to the word Babylon. In Assyrian, the word Babilu is means the gate of God. So Babel for them meant the gate of God. Babylon is the gate of God. Babel, Babylonian, Babylon, gate of God. So Babel for Christians means a land of confusion, but we have to understand for the rest of the world, or in the world's perspective, it is actually Babylon, or the gate of God. It is the center. It is the location of power for people. Babel is located in the land. Okay, if you look at the story if you guys have your Bibles up, you can open it to Genesis chapter 9 and 10. That's where we're at. Babel is located in the land of controlled by a man named Nimrod. Nimrod is a name that we actually use now to make fun of people, but actually Nimrod he's a great warrior king in the line of Ham. Okay, three sons come from the line of Noah: Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Japheth. Okay, that one's a little harder to say. Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Okay, they sound like the Three Stooges, right? But they're not the Three Stooges. They're just the three sons of Noah: Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Okay, so Ham, because of what he did to Noah, okay, he gets cursed by Noah. Okay, and so he is the cursed son. And from that line of the cursed son, Canaan, right? Look at the name, Canaan. Canaan is the land who fights with Israel at the end, right? So these are the people who are going to be cursed by Noah. In other words, this is the line of uh, I don't know, the ones that end up fighting with Israel. It's the enemies of Israel that end up coming up here from the line of Ham. Okay, we see this. And but from that, Nimrod he's a great warrior. So what he does is he gathers people like him, right? In Genesis chapter 11:4, it says, "Then they said, 'Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the earth.'" So look, the Tower of Babel, why did they build it? Okay, look at what they're saying. Look at they're saying. They're saying, I don't let us build this tower so that we are not dispersed. Okay, so they're scared of being dispersed across the world. Okay, spread out. Okay, dispersed also means spread out. Spread out. They're scared of being spread out over the world. So they come together, and Nimrod said, "Let's come together so we're not spread out." Okay, so let's come together to fend for ourselves. Remember, this is this looks very similar to what Cain did, right? This looks so much similar to what Cain did, right? The whole idea of, like it's remember we talked about the whole idea that when children are left in the field, they feel anxious and they huddle together because there's too much freedom for them. And that's the same idea. The human beings came together out of their fear to drive away the fear of the unknown world. They came together, and this is what we saw in Cain, right? Because they had a fear of the world. Why? Because God was no longer their protector. They no longer had God because they either didn't want to have God, or they knew God was not on their side. Whatever the reason is, they did not believe that God was going to do everything for them. So they had to fear the unknown. They had to fear the world. So they came together. See, the Tower of Babel is a symbol of human pride. But really, it's a symbol of human fear, because people came together to overcome their fear, right? Just as people in this life, we have to realize people in this life also gather things, physical things, and even non-physical things like relationships and fame and power and things like that, in order to fend off the fear of the unknown, or fear of death, fear of something. There's an anxiety and a fear that they're trying to overcome, right? And this is, we know from psychology, that this is what people are doing, the whole like midlife crisis and all that, right? The people of Babel wanted a tower so they could reach the heavens. Okay, not because they really thought they could physically reach the heavens. I don't think they're that stupid. Okay. But what they really wanted was this, okay? What they really wanted was they wanted to tell themselves. They wanted to be able to tell themselves every morning as they got up, and face the world. They wanted to tell themselves every morning or day in, day out that they can reach the heavens. They wanted to tell themselves that they could reach the heavens. They wanted to tell themselves that they don't need God anymore because they have the power to do such great things, right? They wanted to tell themselves that they can get to God. They wanted to tell themselves that they can get God to react to them if they do something. They wanted to tell themselves that they had the power. See, the tower was a sign to the rest of humanity, rest of everyone else in the world, that they had the power, like to be like God and on this earth. So they didn't need him to rule over us anymore. See, the power was a symbol for those living in Babel, those living in Babel, that they knew what they were doing. There was a big cry out to the world saying, "We know what they're doing. We came together. We're building this tower. It's a sign we know what we're doing. We don't need God anymore. We have the power to protect ourselves." It was a symbol of human achievement and development. They will look at it, right? They will look at it. These people who lived in Babel, and the cities and the people and the towns that probably lived all around Babel, right? It's now become a huge city. Remember, Babylon is a huge metropolis. It becomes a huge metropolis. Every morning they will look at it and they will say, "Wow, look at what we can make. Look at this great thing that we have made. Wow, there's nothing that we can do. We're awesome. We are awesome. Who needs God? Who needs God when we can do such great things? We are like gods, right?" So when God came down and he saw the tower, he wasn't looking at the tower and saying, "Oh, look how big it is. It's going to reach my heaven." It's not like God's, it's not like heaven is physically on top of earth somewhere that they can reach. He wasn't threatened. He wasn't feeling like, oh, he wasn't like the giant on top of the cloud with the beansprout coming up. He wasn't feeling threatened. He looked down and he saw the hearts of men being so proud of themselves and getting rid of God in their hearts. And that's why the Tower of Babel, guys, it's not just us showing off. It's actually a rebellion. In relation to God, the Tower of Babel is a rebellion. Okay, it's a rebellion. It's a human rebellion. It's a coup d'etat, because what we're in the heart of those people building the tower, what was it doing was they're saying we don't need God anymore. So God, you can go away. We can rule ourselves. We can be our own king. See, if the original sin was a crime against God, the Tower of Babel was a coup against the heaven and throne of God. That's why it was such a big deal. Even though the problem was, why did it happen, right? Even though God had taken away the tree of life and he took away unlimited life, right? He limited the length of life. We couldn't live forever, right? And after that he even limited it to 120 years. It says in Genesis chapter 6:3, then the Lord said, "My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh; his days shall be 120 years." So even though God limited our life to only 100 years, right? That's compared to what human beings live, like 600, 700 years before that, and compared to how long God lives, eternity, it's nothing. So God limited human beings to live for like a second, like a blip. And even then, it was not enough to control the ability and the godly power of humanity, because we were created too powerfully or too great. So God realized because we were made in his image, if we were allowed to work together, we would literally just become like God and have no end to what we can do. And that's what God saw. No end to what we can do and no end to our human pride. Imagine how proudful human beings would be if we were able to do everything that we physically wanted to do. If we could physically control this, this natural Earth any way we wanted to. If we could, build spaceships and go to other universes any way we wanted to. If we could do that, imagine the type of pride that human beings have, right? And that's the pride in the human being heart that God saw, and that's why he was disgusted, and that's why he realized he had to do something, or we would all become gods, and we would all destroy this perfection that God had created, right? And that's why he came down and confused. The curse of Babel, I don't believe, is simply language. I don't think he just made language and went away. Because he said the word they use is Babel is confused and to mix. Okay, he mixed up the languages and the words and the minds of people. God came down and he sowed confusion and chaos, and he created distrust and jealousy between human beings as a curse, as a punishment of our pride. Okay? As a curse and a punishment of our pride, we were given confusion and chaos and distrust and jealousy. This is what we get. See, why do we look at the world today, guys? Is it just because out of language that we can't communicate with each other? Is this world, if we had the same language, do you think we would solve all international politics and problems in this world? Do you think we'll be able to fix all the problems? I mean, look at the world we live in. People who live in the same family fight with one another. We are broken people. The brokenness of our communication and our relationship with each other is not because we're different. It's because we're actually the same. It's because we're all broken. We're all sinners who cannot escape the mistrust and jealousy that results from sin. It's because we're all the same. Okay? The story of Babel tells us that human pride and a rejection of God's control is the cause of our broken relationships in the world. The reason our relationships are broken, the reason we can't talk to each other, the reason we continue to hate each other instead of love each other, is because we're confused. We can't speak to one another. We can't speak honestly, to heart, in spirit and in truth, because that was the punishment of our pride. Because we said we don't need God, right? We said we don't need God. And God left us to ourselves. Left alone, we committed sin over and over, so much sin that the sin was too great for God to take. There was nothing left for us but judgment and punishment. See, when you allow pride to take over, you just start building up sin on top of yourself, and you start building punishment on top of yourself. The physical Tower of Babel may have fallen. It's gone now. But the real, true Tower of Babel is built in the hearts of men. We build it in our hearts because that's where it really matters. That's where really it hurts God. We create monuments. Human beings, we create monuments for ourselves, right? If not physically, in our lives, right? We create monuments so that we can tell ourselves that we have meaning. I have meaning, that we have something, we have left something behind, right? This is not just for nothing, that we are important. We create monuments to be able to tell ourselves that we are actually gods. All the world's greatest buildings, not the biggest buildings, right? You go into a city, or even a small city, even a town, you'll see monuments that human beings built for themselves. They are temples that man used to build for other gods, but today man builds them for their biggest god, man, for us. We build the biggest monuments for ourselves. God did not destroy the Tower of Babel because he was threatened. He destroyed it because he was hurt. He was hurt, right? He was hurt. We hurt him again. We hurt them because we just said we don't love you as much as you love us. That's what it pretty much said. We don't want you. We don't need you. We don't want you in our life. Well, the whole time, God simply wanted us to love him back. The thing is, though, there is hope here. Where is the gospel in the story? Okay, I always thought that in the story of Babel, that Babel was built by everyone. That's what I thought. That Babel was a sign and a warning that everybody was involved in the building of Babel, so that every one of us is a descendant of someone who built the Tower of Babel. So we're all rebellious and sinners. But the thing is, if I think about it, doesn't it make more sense that there were people in the world? If you look at the three tribes of brothers who separated, doesn't it make more sense that there were people who actually didn't go to Babel? They went to their own city, whatever, and they stayed, right? Because the earth is round, and they went everywhere. And remember, Babel was founded in the land of Nimrod, the land controlled by the line of Ham. Okay, so if you look in the chapter 9 of the story of Genesis, you notice cursed is Canaan. Okay, chapter 9, verse 25 to 27 says this. Noah says this: Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall be he to his brothers. He also said, Blessed be the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. So, Ham, Canaan is the son of Ham. Okay, so when Noah says Canaan, he's talking about Ham, really. So Cain and Ham is cursed to be the slaves because of what he did. Okay, and so Ham is cursed. Shem is the blessed one. Japheth is the one that is sent out to the rest of the world. Okay. If you guys want to kind of study, or if you guys want to figure out like which line, Ham, Shem, or Japheth are we from? Because don't forget, everybody in the world is now populated either by those three brothers, right? We are Asian, so we are in the line of Japheth because he is the sea wanderer. Okay, they call him the sea wanderer. He got on a boat. He's the coastland people. He said they explained it. So he's the one that got on a boat and traveled throughout the world and went and populated everywhere else. Ham is centered in that area, Middle East area of Babylon. Okay, and that's why in the line of Ham. Okay, if you look at chapter 10, it's interesting the cities and the names that are connected with the line of Ham. I think we talked about this before. Right, Babel, right, Assyria, Nineveh, Cush, Egypt. These are all lands and cities that are connected with Ham. Notice these are all cities that are connected with what? Being enemies of Israel, enemies of God. You understand? So Ham is a line of the enemy of God. Again, the line of Cain, who refused to follow God's rule. Okay? And then there is a line of Shem, who from the line of Shem comes Israel, David, Jesus, the Messiah. So Shem is chosen as the one that God will save the world through. They are the righteous family, okay? And Japheth is the wanderer. He just went, okay? I'm sure he's connected. He is more of a natural, that family would probably be more like a natural God. That's why Asian and in a lot of Asian ancient cultures, we believe in a deity, but it's kind of weird, right? It's like mixed up with a lot of other stuff because I think they went so far away, they really forgot where they came from. But let's go back to the story of Babel. What I'm saying is Babel is located in the land of Ham, in the land of the enemies of God. Okay, I'm sure people from Japheth and Shem, those people also came, right? Because it's a huge city. People, just as people come to America for New York, for LA, for San Francisco, people don't come to America to grow corn. Not most people, right? Most people come to America for New York, for Dallas, for Florida, those big cities. In the same way, I'm sure people across the world gathered to Babel when they heard about it. But you have to understand that it was founded in the land of Ham. It means that there are a lot of people in other areas that did not come. In other words, there were remnants who still called upon the name of God even during this time. That's what I believe. But that it only makes sense because if everybody came, it would be like if they were under a trance. There were always we have to understand and in the history of the Bible, there were always people who called upon the name of God. And so when everybody became confused and all that stuff, how did that work out? Of course, there's a little details that I am not sure about. I'm not sure if Babel happened before or after everybody spread out, okay, or during. For me, I think it happened during, okay, during, because it had to take thousands of years to build the city, so it had to happen for a long time. But the Bible says that the three families split up, okay, before explaining the Babel story. So but the Bible also says that they spread out after. So there's a little bit of confusion, but it doesn't matter. What's important is that we are not all. We don't have to assume that we are all from the line of Ham. We don't have to assume that we are all from the line of Cain. We don't have to assume that we are all in the line of this world. There was still always a remnant, a line of Shem, who called upon the name of God, who stayed away from Babel, who still enjoyed the presence of God in their life and God's rule, living under God's rule. So there was always a remnant, and that is the gospel, that God always maintains a people for himself. And the lesson that we must learn at the end is, of course, how are we living our lives today? Are we building towers of Babels in our lives? Do we have, Babel towers? What are we building our towers with? Do we build our towers with wealth, power, maybe fame, influence, desire, pleasure, things of this world, lust, right? Or do we build it with intelligence, IQ, college degrees, all that stuff, ability, what you have done? Or do you just build it with yourself? The problem is if we live in this world, all of us end up building Babel towers because that's what the fear of this world drives us to. The fear of this world, the fear of living in this world of pain, of the unknown, drives us to build towers so that we can tell ourselves that we're okay. But they're only fake towers who will all be destroyed. And so let us not be fooled. We are all building towers and living in towers of Babel, or we are all renting a space in the tower of grace. The tower of grace is built by God. The tower of grace is built through grace and mercy. And the tower of grace is rented out. We live there because he allows us. Because God is our strong tower. He is our only strong tower. If you depend on him, if you only look to him, and if you only listen and follow him, then he will be that strong tower. And we won't need to build anything else because we will have comfort, we'll have hope. We won't be in fear of this world because we'll have overcome, because God has already overcome. So let's take this week to break down our towers of Babel and find our place in the Tower of Grace. Let's pray.